Only a 100 kart race, the very interesting class of kart race which doesn't allow any gearbox or clutch, so they have to have a rolling start. The men to look out for in this one are in pole position Alan Vance, number 15. Alongside him will be Richard Smith, and alongside me for this commentary is Trevor Williams, a very experienced kart racer himself.
It's interesting to watch these boys warming up their tyres on the lap. They're actually out on dry tyres, even though the track is somewhat wet. The options are either proper wet tyres or the slick tyres as used in Formula 1 cars. Most of these boys are on the slick tyres on this slightly wet track, which promises for an interesting moment at Shell, which we're coming up to after this rolling start.
Well, that promises here. It's a good start. It's a beautiful start, and away they go. And in fact, it was number 15, Alan Vance. Alan Vance on the inside down into Shell, out on the wet bit. It's number 17, Richard Smith, who slots into second place, and somebody has spun in the middle of the pack.
I couldn't pick up the spinner there, but Richard Smith certainly got through there in the wet on Shell. We promised a bit of action at Shell, and certainly that's what's happening on this very slippery track indeed. Quite a few of them falling by the wayside. There is our leader, number 77, Alan Vance. He got through Shell safely.
So Richard Smith, that is, and with a very handy lead indeed already, as you can see, and he is seems to be having no difficulty with the wet patches. We're at Duckham's now, the long double apex right-hander, and he's using all the road, as you can see, in this very little kart. The 1000cc karts making Mondello look quite big.
Yes, the experience here of Richard Smith got through Shell safely and already established a very good lead. Richard's been racing for about 10 or 11 years now and slides round there quite happily. Very much in control of this kart, even though the conditions are far from favourable for good kart racing. So Richard Smith, number 77, leading at the moment. We try to pick up the second place man for you next time round.
Well, we think it's Alan Vance, but we'll have to check it, and look at that lead. He's now in Dunlop up at the top of the hill, and once again driving beautifully, using all the road. A long gap before we get second place man coming down the hill now. Hard to identify this, but in fact it's quite a sensation, because it's David Allen, the current All-Ireland 1000cc international kart champion, who was in fact on the third row of the grid.
Yes, Davy Allen picking up there very well indeed, showing a lot of skill. There's somebody, number 15, Alan Vance, unfortunately has gone off there in a big way at Shell, showing how difficult it is to control these karts, and we've got a few more off there as well, but the leaders seem to be safely through. And IRL, David Allen, doing very well to pick up a second place, showing his experience coming from the third row of the grid up into second place now.
And I would imagine that Alan Vance will be very unhappy with that situation. He had been on pole position, and now it's all thrown away. And picture at the moment, we had number 55 there going very well and under great pressure indeed from 85, and that's Joe McCullough from Cookstown.
Well, Joe McCullough certainly driving very well. He's quite an experienced driver. Seems to have had a bad start. That's number 85, Joe McCullough, but working his way up through the field at the moment.
So a nice little dice there.
That number is actually 56, who's Eamon Bates from Clonmel. It looks like a 55, but it's 56, Eamon Bates from Clonmel, being challenged by number 85, Joe McCullough.
And I noticed that 56, Eamon Bates, the Clonmel driver, as we said, is driving a Ferrari DAP, so the great name even penetrates down into 1000cc karts. So you can see it getting very crowded as they come down now up the hill into Dunlop, and then across the start-finish straight for another lap.
And not going very well indeed, but the dice is on there for second place between IRL David Allen and 98 Stephen Quinn, who was All-Ireland champion last year.
Still it's Richard Smith, and there you can see the gap between first, second and third, 98 there. Stephen Quinn, the Portadown driver. And Richard Smith is really going to have to keep the pressure on here. He's going very gently through Shell, and Shell gets impossibly slippery in conditions like this. A nice shot of him there. You see the tail drifting out, but there's second place man. We're watching the leader again as they go down the long straight now down to Duckham's. Gets very bumpy in this part of the course for the kart. You'll see that the double apex barely, and he nearly loses at that time. Got it very sideways indeed. And it's quite a physical sport, particularly in karts around Mondello, because you take quite a thumping.
You do indeed. The bumps, but no suspension on the kart. You certainly feel every bump. But Richard Smith is putting on a display of first-class kart driving in the wet. He's totally in control of that. It may look to be sliding around the place, but Richard knows exactly where the kart is going, and more important, where he is going, and he's leading this race at the moment, driving like the experienced driver that he is. He's got a good lead now over IRL, who's in second place still. I think we wait to pick him up for you. Back to you.
So Smith, who was 12th out of 130 competitors at the World Championships in Belgium in 1980, giving you some idea of what international standard this particular driver is. There's number 98 just coming through now, Stephen Quinn. And he has pulled away considerably from the Irish champion, David Allen. Number 10 there, I think that's one of the back markers, just checking the lap chart.
He is one of the back markers, yes. Number 10, Gary Ringland, is down the field.
2 laps to go now. Field fairly well spread out, not a very unusual thing for 100cc karts. Normally it's an absolutely crawl all over everyone situation, and we thought we were going to have difficulties in picking them out, but it's quite the reverse of that, Trevor.
It has turned out quite differently. Unfortunately, the weather has played havoc with our little plans for a very close race, and obviously the experience of Richard Smith showing up here. He really is the master here in the wet today, and also because the engines are so low to the ground, they tend to suck in water through the carburetor, which can affect their running. So obviously quite a few have fallen by the wayside in the slightly adverse conditions here today. But Richard Smith certainly putting on a display of driving. He's already lapping quite a few of the back markers who aren't going that slowly. There we are, seeing him catching up with some of the back markers. He had to work his way through them.
At the tail of that lot there, and amongst those Fergus McGee, who we expected to do very well in this race. He normally mechanics for Morris Dunn in the Formula 4 2000 class. Number 6 there is Fergus McGee, but there goes Richard Smith, and he takes the checkered flag.
Well, a well-deserved
superb win. He's only been out 3 times this year, and he's had 3 wins, and you can't do better than that, Trevor.
Obviously hasn't lost the touch. Bit of retirement didn't do him any harm, but very adverse conditions for cars, where you can see the slick tyres there. Very, very hard to control them, and takes a man of a lot of experience, which Richard Smith has, to keep the car even on the track, and he's done so very well today, and I'm sure he'll be happy enough with his win.
And the result?